My name is Claire Whitaker. And I was 32 years old when I learned that heartbreak does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it comes as a text message on my birthday at exactly 7:18 p.m. My boyfriend sent me this. My ex is drunk. I need to go check on her. Don't wait for me. I stared at the screen while the candles flickered between two untouched plates. Steak, mashed potatoes, a bottle of red wine I had saved for almost a year. The playlist was low. The tablecloth freshly ironed. Is the apartment glowing like I still believed? Love deserves ceremony. I typed back, "Sir, go ahead." Then I placed my phone face down. The strange thing was, I did not cry. I did not throw the glass. I did not call him 50 times, begging him to remember what day it was. I only looked at the dinner getting cold and felt something inside me go very still. Not numb, clear. Ethan Hayes and I had been together for 2 years. 6 months living together. Long enough for affection to become routine. Long enough for silence to start telling the truth before either of us had the courage to say it. When we first met, he was still raw from his breakup with Marissa, his ex-girlfriend. He was handsome in that wounded way people mistake for depth. Gentle voice, tired eyes, careful smile. He told me she had drained him. I believed him. I told myself I was not trying to fix him. I was just being steady. A soft place to land. For a while, he made me believe that was enough. He laughed again. Cooked breakfast on Sundays. Left notes on the fridge. Talked about trips we would take after my next promotion. While half asleep, he whispered that I felt like home. But old doors have a way of staying open when someone keeps checking the lock. Marissa started as a name, then she became a notification, then a reason. She's depressed. She doesn't have anyone else. She just needs closure. She was drunk and called me by accident. Each excuse sounded small enough to forgive. That was how it worked. Betrayal did not walk into our apartment wearing perfume and lipstick. It slipped in quietly, dressed as compassion. At first, I tried to be understanding. Then I tried to be patient. Then I stopped trying to convince myself I was not being replaced by a ghost. Ethan smiled at his phone and locked it when I entered the room. He canceled dinner because a friend needed him. He started dressing better for errands that took 3 hours. And every time I asked a question, he looked at me like my pain was an inconvenience. A week before my birthday, I came home early and found him on the balcony, speaking softly into his phone. He was smiling. Not politely. Not casually. Tenderly. The kind of smile he used to give me before love became something he assumed would wait. When he saw me, he froze. "It's just work," he said too quickly. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "Okay." That night, lying beside him, I realized I was no longer in a relationship. I was holding a place for a man who had already started walking backward into his past. On my birthday morning, Ethan forgot. Or maybe he remembered and decided guilt was easier to avoid than love was to honor. He kissed my forehead while scrolling through his phone and said he had to meet a friend for coffee. I watched him leave. I already knew. Still, I cooked dinner. Not because I hoped he would come home changed. I cooked because I wanted to see what peace looked like when disappointment finally stopped pretending to be patience. So when his text came, I read it once, then again. My ex is drunk. I need to go check on her. Don't wait for me. 2 years, reduced to one message. I smiled, not because it was funny, because it was finished. I poured myself a glass of wine, took one sip, and picked up my phone again. But I did not call Ethan. I called his father. "Good evening, Mr. Hayes," I said calmly. "I know this is sudden, but I'd like to invite you and Mrs. Hayes over tonight. It's my birthday, and I have a special gift to share." He sounded delighted. "Claire, that's so thoughtful. We'll be there in an hour." "Perfect," I said. When the call ended, I looked around the apartment. The candles. The plates. The quiet. Ethan wanted to check on his past. Fine. I would make sure his future had witnesses. After ending the call with Ethan's father, I sat alone at the dining table for a few minutes. The apartment was silent except for the faint music playing through the speakers. A year earlier, that silence would have scared me. Now it felt honest. I took another sip of wine and stared at the empty chair across from me. For months, I had been pretending not to notice what was happening, pretending not to see the messages, pretending not to hear the late-night phone calls, pretending not to recognize the growing distance between us. Love can survive many things: distance, stress, even mistakes, but it cannot survive being the second choice forever. Eventually, reality wins. I stood up and walked toward our bedroom. The hallway felt longer than usual. Maybe because every step carried me closer to something I had been avoiding for months. The end. The bedroom door creaked softly as I pushed it open. Everything looked normal. His jacket hung on the chair. His watch rested on the dresser. The faint scent of his cologne lingered in the air, evidence of a life we had built together, or at least the illusion of one. I opened his side of the closet. Neatly arranged shirts, folded sweaters, shoes lined up in perfect rows. For a moment, memories rushed through me. Our first vacation, the night he told me he loved me, the mornings we spent drinking coffee together before work, the plans, the promises, the future we talked about. Then another memory surfaced, him smiling at his phone, him canceling dates, him saying Marissa needed him, again, and again, and again. The warmth disappeared. I pulled out the largest suitcase we owned and placed it on the bed. Then I started packing, not violently, not emotionally, carefully, methodically, almost peacefully. Every shirt folded, every jacket zipped, every pair of shoes arranged neatly. There was no rage in the process, only acceptance, the kind that comes after months of grieving someone who is still standing right in front of you. At one point, I found the gray hoodie he used to wear whenever we stayed in and watched movies. I paused. A year ago, I would have buried my face in it and cried. Instead, I folded it and placed it inside the suitcase. Some memories deserve respect. They just do not deserve residence. By the time I finished, half the closet was empty. For the first time in months, the room felt balanced. I zipped the suitcase shut. The sound echoed through the apartment. Final. Definitive. Like a chapter closing. I rolled it toward the front door and left it beside the entryway. Then I returned to the kitchen. The steaks were cooling. I reheated them, set 2 additional plates, polished the wine glasses, adjusted the candles. Everything looked elegant, almost celebratory. Anyone walking in would assume they were about to witness a proposal. In a way, they were, just not the kind anyone expected. At exactly 8:11 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Mr. Prom and Mrs. Hayes smiling warmly. His mother carried a small gift bag. His father held a bottle of wine. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," his mother said, kissing my cheek. "Thank you. You look beautiful tonight," she added. I smiled politely. "That's kind of you." His father laughed. "Claire, you're making us feel underdressed. Come in." They stepped inside. Neither of them noticed the suitcase. Not yet. The 3 of us settled around the table. Conversation flowed naturally. Their garden, their recent vacation, Ethan's younger brother starting a new job. Normal topics, comfortable topics. For a brief moment, I almost wished I could freeze time. Because once the truth entered the room, none of us would leave unchanged. His mother took a sip of wine and smiled. "You seem happy tonight." I nearly laughed. Happy was not the right word. Relieved was closer. "I'm doing okay," I said. His father looked around. "So where's Ethan?" I cut a piece of steak. "He said he had somewhere important to be." Mrs. Hayes frowned slightly. "On your birthday?" I shrugged. "He said someone needed him." The answer seemed to satisfy them for the moment, but only for the moment. As dinner continued, I noticed them exchanging curious glances. They could feel something. The tension beneath the surface. The absence. The missing piece. Eventually, his father set down his fork. Everything all right between you two? There it was. The question. The opening. I looked at both of them. Good people. People who had welcomed me into their family. People who genuinely believed their son was building a future with me. They deserved the truth. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. I took a slow breath, then stood from my chair. I actually invited you here because I wanted to give a gift. His mother smiled immediately. Oh, I nodded. Yes. I walked toward the front door. Their eyes followed me. A moment later, I returned pulling the large suitcase. The wheels rolled across the hardwood floor. The sound seemed unnaturally loud. When I placed it beside the dining table, both of them stared, confused, concerned, silent. His father spoke first. Claire. What is this? I looked directly at him. Ethan's things. The room froze. His mother blinked. What? I kept my voice calm. Earlier tonight, your son texted me. Neither moved, neither spoke. I continued. He said his ex-girlfriend was drunk and needed him. Mrs. Hayes's face lost color. I watched understanding slowly arrive. Then disbelief. Then embarrassment. Then anger. He left you, she whispered. On your birthday? I nodded. Yes. His father's jaw tightened. The muscles in his face hardened. For the first time since I met him, he looked genuinely furious. He told you not to wait. Yes. And where is he now? With her. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. I poured myself another glass of wine. Not because I needed courage, because I didn't. The hardest part had already happened months ago. This was simply the truth, arriving at its destination. I spent a long time pretending this situation would improve. I said quietly. I kept giving him chances. I kept believing his explanations. Mrs. Hayes lowered her eyes. The shame on her face broke my heart. Not because she caused any of this, but because she clearly wished she had raised a son who knew how to value what he had. I didn't invite you here to embarrass him. I continued. I invited you because you deserve to know why your son won't be living here anymore. The words landed like stones. His father stared at the suitcase, then at the empty chair where Ethan should have been sitting, then back at me. The disappointment in his eyes was devastating. More devastating than anger. Because disappointment means hope existed first, and hope had just died. A long silence followed. Then his father spoke, quietly, firmly. You did the right thing. Claire. I swallowed, for the first time that night. Emotion threatened to crack through my calm exterior, but I held it together. Thank you. Just then, the sound of keys rattling outside the apartment door echoed through the hallway. The lock began to turn. Mrs. Hayes slowly lifted her head. Mr. Hayes stood up from his chair, and I set down my wine glass, because Ethan had finally come home. The apartment door opened. At first, all we heard was Ethan laughing softly. The familiar sound drifted through the hallway, before he even stepped inside. Yeah, he said into his phone. Text me when you get home. Marissa. It had to be. The irony almost made me smile. For months, I had questioned my instincts. Tonight, he answered every question himself. Good night, he said warmly into the phone. Then, he stepped into the dining room and froze. The color drained from his face instantly. His eyes moved from me, to his mother, to his father, to the suitcase, to the half-finished birthday dinner. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The room felt suspended in time. What? He finally whispered. What's going on? I met his gaze calmly. You told me not to wait. His expression shifted. Confusion, concern, fear, then realization. And suddenly, he understood exactly what he was looking at. Claire, you said not to wait. I repeated quietly. So I didn't. His mother stood first. The disappointment in her face looked almost unbearable. Is it true? Ethan swallowed. What Claire told us. His father's voice was cold. Were you with your ex-girlfriend? The silence that followed was answer enough. Ethan looked at me, then at them, then back at me. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because every story like this eventually reaches the same line. It's not what it looks like. As though reality required better marketing. She was drunk, he said quickly. She needed help. His mother stared at him. And Claire didn't. The question hit harder than any accusation. Ethan blinked. What? Today was her birthday. His mother's voice trembled. She made dinner. She waited for you. She invited us here. And you chose another woman? Mom. No. She raised a hand. For once. Don't explain. The room fell silent again. I stood and gathered the empty plates from the table. The simple movement seemed to confuse him. Maybe he expected tears. A fight. Begging. Something. Instead, I carried the dishes to the sink. Because my decision had already been made. Months ago. Tonight was only paperwork. When I returned, Ethan was standing beside the suitcase, looking at it as if it might disappear. Claire, he said softly. Can we talk? We are talking alone. No. His face tightened. Please. I looked directly at him. We've had months to talk. You just didn't think this conversation mattered, until consequences showed up. His father exhaled slowly. The sound carried years of disappointment. So? He said. Tell me honestly. Have you been keeping one foot in this relationship, and one foot in your past? Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Because honesty is difficult when it finally becomes mandatory. His father nodded sadly. That's what I thought. Ethan looked at me again. Now panic had started replacing confidence. Claire. I love you. There it was. The emergency declaration. The words people save for when they're losing something, not when they're protecting it. I folded my arms. Do you? Yes. Then why wasn't I your first call tonight? He hesitated. Because. Why wasn't I your priority? Claire. Why did you remember her needs on my birthday but forget mine? His shoulders sagged. No answer. Only silence. And silence tells the truth better than excuses. His mother wiped at her eyes. Not crying. Just exhausted. I am so embarrassed. Mom? Please. No. She shook her head. Do you know what hurts the most? You had someone who loved you. She stood by you. She believed in you. And you treated that loyalty like it would always be there. Ethan looked genuinely shaken now, as if he had expected criticism, not consequences. Those are very different things. He turned back toward me. I'm sorry. I nodded. I know. Please don't do this. It's already done. You can't end 2 years over one mistake. The statement hung in the air. One mistake. I stared at him for several seconds. Then I smiled sadly. That text wasn't the mistake. His forehead creased. What? That text was the confirmation. The room became perfectly quiet. I continued. Do you remember the canceled dinners? The late-night calls? The lies? The balcony conversation? The birthdays you forgot? The promises you broke? One text didn't destroy us. It simply revealed that we were already gone. His face fell, because he knew I was right. I walked to the side table and picked up an envelope. Inside were copies of everything I had already arranged. The shared credit card account, removed. The automatic payments, separated. The apartment lease, updated. Months of uncertainty had taught me one thing. Never wait until the emergency to find the exit. I handed him the envelope. He stared at it. What is this? The practical part? His hands trembled slightly as he took it. You planned all this? No. I looked him directly in the eye. I prepared for it. There's a difference. His father slowly walked over to the suitcase. Without saying a word, he grabbed the handle. The gesture felt symbolic. A father carrying the weight of his son's choices. Ethan's eyes widened. Dad. Enough. The older man's voice was firm. Let's go. Dad. Please. No. His father looked at him for a long moment. I taught you better than this." The disappointment in those 6 words hit harder than any shouting could have. Ethan looked broken. For the first time, all night, I believed he understood what he had lost. Not because I was leaving, because he finally realized I wasn't coming back. His mother stood beside his father. "We're leaving." "Mom? We're leaving." The conversation was over. The decision was final. Ethan looked at me one last time, desperate, searching for hesitation, for hope, for some sign that I might change my mind. But the woman standing before him wasn't the same woman who had spent months waiting. Waiting changes people. Eventually. It teaches them how to stop. "Goodbye, Ethan." His eyes filled with emotion. "Claire." I didn't answer. Some endings deserve silence. A moment later, the apartment door closed behind them. The hallway filled briefly with muffled voices. Then those voices disappeared too. And suddenly, everything was quiet. The chair across from mine sat empty. The candles continued burning. The wine remained half-finished. But for the first time, in a very long time, the apartment felt peaceful. Not lonely. Not broken. Free. After the door closed behind them, I stood motionless in the middle of the apartment. For a long time, I simply listened. The hum of the refrigerator. The soft music still playing through the speakers. The faint crackle of candle flames. Nothing else. No arguments. No apologies. No excuse. Just quiet. I looked at the empty chair across from me. For months, that chair had held a man who was physically present but emotionally elsewhere. Now it was finally honest. I sat down and finished my glass of wine. Then I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I was no longer pretending. That night, I cleaned the kitchen, packed away the leftovers, extinguished the candles, and went to bed. Alone, but strangely at peace. The next morning felt unfamiliar. I woke up automatically and reached for my phone, then stopped. There was nobody to check on, nobody to wait for, nobody to wonder about. The realization felt surprisingly light. I made coffee, opened the curtains, watched sunlight spill across the living room. The apartment looked different. Not because anything had changed physically, because I had. The toothbrush beside mine was gone. His shoes were gone. Half the closet was empty. For the first time in months, my home felt entirely mine. That evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Hayes. "Claire, I'm sorry for what happened. You didn't deserve any of it." I stared at the message for a moment, then replied, "Thank you. I hope Ethan finds what he's looking for." A few seconds later, another message appeared. "I hope you find peace." I looked around the apartment, then typed, "I already have." After that, neither of us contacted the other again. And somehow, that felt right. A week later, I took time off from work. Not because I was devastated, because I wanted to breathe. I drove 3 hours to a small coastal town, rented a cabin overlooking the ocean, cooked my own meals, walked barefoot on the beach, watched sunsets paint the horizon in shades of gold and orange. Every day, my mind became a little quieter. Every day, the relationship occupied less space inside me. On the second night, I sat alone on the porch with a cup of coffee. The sea stretched endlessly before me, and suddenly a thought arrived. Simple, brutal, true. Love is not measured by how much pain you're willing to tolerate. It's measured by how much truth you're willing to face. For years, I had been facing truth. Ethan had been avoiding it. That was the real difference between us. A month passed, then another. People occasionally asked what happened. Co-workers, friends, neighbors. I always gave the same answer. We went our separate ways. No dramatic explanations. No character assassination. No social media posts. The truth didn't need advertising. It had already done its job. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding myself, not dramatically, quietly. I returned to the gym, started cooking more, read books I had neglected, spent weekends doing things I enjoyed instead of managing someone else's emotions. Little by little, I remembered who I was before I became responsible for someone else's happiness. One evening, while organizing files on my laptop, I found a folder labeled Us. The name made me pause. Inside were hundreds of photographs, vacations, birthdays, weekend trips, lazy mornings, holiday dinners, memories of a relationship that had once been real, or at least felt real. I scrolled through them slowly. There we were laughing on a beach. There we were celebrating his promotion. There we were, smiling into a camera, while problems quietly grew beneath the surface. For a moment, sadness touched me. Not because I wanted him back. Because I mourned the version of us I had believed existed. Then I selected the folder, hovered over delete, and clicked, Gone. Not erased, released. The feeling surprised me. I expected grief. Instead, I felt lighter, as though I had finally put down something I had been carrying for years. Several months later, I ran into one of Ethan's friends at a cafe. After a few minutes of small talk, she hesitated, then said quietly, "Ethan's not doing very well." I stirred my coffee. "Oh, he moved back in with his parents." She looked uncomfortable. "His contract wasn't renewed. He's been struggling." I nodded politely. "Not cold. Not cruel. Just detached," she continued. And Marissa stopped talking to him, not long after everything happened. That detail hung in the air. The woman he had chosen over us, gone. Just like that. I felt no satisfaction. No triumph. No revenge. Only closure. Because life had taught him something I no longer needed to teach. Actions have consequences. He regrets it, she added softly. I smiled faintly. "I'm sure he does." She said he keeps talking about you. I looked out the cafe window. Cars passed. People hurried along the sidewalk. Life continued, as it always does. Then I turned back and said, "That doesn't change anything." The conversation ended shortly afterward. And with it, the last remaining thread, connecting me to the past. A year later, my birthday arrived again. No elaborate plans. No expectations. No waiting. I cooked myself dinner, opened a bottle of wine, lit a single candle. The apartment was quiet, but unlike the year before, the silence felt warm, comfortable, earned. I sat at the same dining table, the same place where everything had ended, and realized that ending had given me something precious. Space. Space to heal. Space to grow. Space to become someone stronger. People often think freedom comes from finding the right person. Sometimes it comes from letting go of the wrong one. I raised my wine glass. The candlelight reflected softly against the crystal. For a brief moment, I remembered that old birthday. The text message. The suitcase. The stunned expressions. The truth sitting at the center of the table. And I understood something I hadn't fully grasped before. I hadn't taken revenge that night. I had chosen peace. There is a difference. Revenge keeps you connected to the person who hurt you. Peace releases them. Ethan escaped into his past. I ended mine. And endings, when handled honestly, create room for better beginnings. I smiled to myself, then lifted the glass slightly higher. "Happy birthday, Claire." This time, I meant it.